Hey, Luke.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. We are waiting.
How'd you make out with the refrigerator?
It's coming on Saturday.
Oh,
It's been just this nightmare. Couldn't get it out of an apartment in the city, and it was just. I'll tell you later.
okay.
Ed stayed up in Wellfleet this week. I've been in the city working, waiting for the refrigerator. It's sort of like it'll come at some point.
Sharp, are you dressed?
We have a quorum. There are 4 of us here.
Oh, good.
Hey, Jim.
Hi, Gordon.
You might notice hanging on the wall behind me in my New York apartment is a lure that's a triptych that Tracy Hay painted that used to be hanging in Max
Oh, wow.
in Wellfleet.
Ah,
I brought here to New York.
very nice.
Just need Meryl. We have 3 more minutes. Hi, Meryl.
Hello, nice to see you all.
Yes, good to see you.
We
We
have a
have-
quorum. Hooray!
And we have about 2 minutes before we have to begin.
Okay, great.
I see Richard is here and he's up first.
Great.
And I see Tish is here too. Tish, you're up second.
Great. Does everyone now get a message when they sign on to Zoom saying that this meeting is being taped?
Yes, I did.
You
Yes.
did? Okay,
Yeah.
good, good. All right. I was thinking that I should announce it in case that doesn't happen, but I won't.
It didn't happen last time, I don't think. Just this
It's a
time.
new
Is that,
thing because-
it's
yeah.
working.
Good, wonderful.
It's 5 o'clock. Meryl, if you want to start.
Okay, Richard, would you be okay with turning on your video so we can see you?
And certainly unmute too. Hey, Richard.
And I'd like to request that everybody who's not speaking mute themselves just because of the background noise that can interfere. Richard, thank you for coming back tonight. Thank you both for coming back tonight. I'm sorry that we needed to ask you to come back this week, but I'm so glad this was able to work out. You sent us some more materials by email. I saw we weren't able to distribute that to the other members of the commission because we need materials to come in by Friday. So maybe you could start by presenting the project and letting people know about what you sent in today, if you would.
Well, thank you. And I also have requested that Tim be here with me to answer any questions. something's happening here on my screen.
I'm moving around so that I can get to your documents.
Oh, I see.
Gordon is going to do some screen sharing about what you sent to us.
Okay. The proposal here,
Well, first of all, here's the Form B for your house, which is basically a history of its historic value, a narrative about it. So it's quite a lovely house and, well documented, not visible from the road, in the Greek Revival style.
With beautiful gardens, I might add.
Beautiful gardens and plenty of mosquitoes, I might add.
All
well,
of
there certainly are plenty of mosquitoes, and the gardens are all the result of my wife's effort. That's her thing. She's an excellent gardener.
she's clearly very talented.
Let me just hold on. And this is the application that you submitted, in which you talk about having added aluminum siding. And now you want to keep the existing traditional appearance, but you'd like to use another siding material.
That's correct.
And here is a picture of the house. Much of what you sent was very large, so I have a hard time sharing it on my screen, except to say that here's a full Cape Greek Revival house that has been very beautifully maintained on a beautiful site, not visible from the road. And that's what I'll say. So Richard, why don't you tell us what you're planning?
Thank you very much. We installed this aluminum siding back in the early 80s. So it's what, 40 years old. I don't know how many of you folks have been up to the site and taken a look. I know that Gordon was here, but it is showing its age. It's peeling. There are some holes in it, and we would like to replace it with an upgrade that will improve the appearance and of the house and will last. It's guaranteed, I believe, for 50 years. It's a product called Everlast. I did leave a sample of it on the brick porch. I don't know if any other of you folks besides Gordon was here
I saw
and had a
it.
chance.
I saw it
See
as
it?
well.
You saw it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
good.
3 of us have seen it.
Okay. We want to do that. And then on the east side of the house, second floor, one window has a sill with a pretty good chunk out of it. And that was shown in the pictures that I sent as well. And we just want to replace the sill, not the entire window.
And you'll have the sill milled to match the existing sills.
Absolutely. It will look just the same. Now, the additional information that I received today and submitted was some information that Tim gave me. And I know that a concern with your commission is going to be the possibility of a repeat pattern. And I'm assured that this product has no repeat pattern. So you don't get that problem. The embossing pattern is an impression of clear vertical grain cedar clapboard. It's composed of a mineral composite with an acrylic additive. When you cut it, there's no silica dust, which you get with some of these other sidings. And it's the most realistic looking, I looked into this a lot, it's the most realistic looking siding that's manufactured. And that's what we would like to do.
And so what happens to these corner board pilasters?
They stay.
They stay.
Everything stays. Yes,
And they're wood.
they are. I think on the southeast corner, which would be on the right-hand side of the picture that you're showing now, portions of that clapboarding or the corner board have been replaced with AZAC, but which looks exactly like the wood. But all of the details on the exterior. We don't intend to touch any of that stuff.
The frieze
in
board,
good
the
shape.
capitals, the base.
All of that's remaining.
Mhm. And then may I ask you a little bit about the subsurface conditions? What is
Sure.
exactly behind the aluminum siding all the way back? If you could just list the materials until you get
Okay.
to the stud frame of the house.
When we had the aluminum siding put up, there was clapboarding that, well, it looks like it does now. But it was deteriorated. It was in terrible shape. That was removed. The underlying, I think it was probably tar paper, was removed down to the sheathing. And so there are no clapboards or shingles underneath what you see there.
Right.
The sheathing goes right to the 2x4s. These are the old style
Right.
nominal 2x4s, the ones that are really 2x4. The front of the house, the portion that you're looking at in the picture right now, is the original portion that was shown on the or it's indicated on the 1848 Coast Survey. The back portion, the northerly L, is an obvious later addition. The roof line doesn't match. It's totally different. But the entire house is clapboarded, and we intend to replace all of it.
And the exposure on the new synthetic material, how closely does it resemble the exposure on this photograph of the original clapper?
It should be fairly identical. Well, the original, pardon me, this photograph that you're looking at, I believe I'm seeing that it's got a TV antenna on the roof. This is a long time ago.
It's got something going on.
I can't tell you if that's the aluminum siding on there or not, if that was taken before or after. But the appearance will be identical.
The exposure will be similar to what's shown here.
Absolutely.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about your motivation for choosing a synthetic material as opposed to simply putting clapboard on the house? Wood clapboard.
Yeah, I think it's probably primarily the same motivation that many people have. I can't afford to paint this thing every 10 years. I'm trying to get the house squared away. I'm 73 years old, and eventually this will pass to the next generation, and I'm trying to get it squared away so that they have minimal expenses and minimal maintenance and upkeep.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Meryl, Luke, Jim? Does anybody have a motion?
Well, I guess what I could say is that I feel sad about synthetic materials on historic houses. And at the same time, since there's no existing clapboard underneath anymore, clearly something needs to be added instead of the aluminum siding. And part of what I'm aware of with this house is that it doesn't show from the road. You know, we as the Historical Commission especially have an obligation to maintain the historic appearance of houses that are showing from the road, but this is more isolated, and it's a lovely house that you've clearly taken good care of, and the gardens are lovely, and I can certainly understand you wanting to save the house for future generations. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. So I have mixed feelings about this, but I appreciate your presentation and you're letting us know more about the reasons why. I think, my primary concern about synthetic materials is that they never seem to really look like the original wood. They don't have the same patina as they age. They tend to shine when headlights are on them, things like that. But your family are the primary people who will be dealing with that. So I guess that's what I can say for now.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that there is no siding underneath what's there now. And of course, it is a concern that, synthetic materials don't age in the same way wood does, which on the one hand is a blessing because of maintenance, but on the other hand, the materials reveal themselves as not being wood as time goes on. We found this also with synthetic roof slates. For a while, we used them. And then you go back 10 years later and, but as Meryl said, the house doesn't show from the road, and you certainly love the house and have, are passing it on to the next generation. And you're certainly an upstanding member of the Wellfleet community, no doubt about it. And does anybody have a motion?
Well, any other comments from anybody? Luke and Jim?
I'm okay with it. I think that, as you pointed out, it's a house that's been well cared for, and it's going to be an upgrade from the aluminum. It's not like a real old clapboard is being taken off. So I personally don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just say when I viewed the house, the aluminum siding was not distressing to me. Its appearance was not distressing, and I understand the motivation to replace it with something that will be more permanent, and I wouldn't interfere with that.
Okay. So I can make a motion to accept the proposal as presented.
I can second it.
And we can vote. Meryl votes aye.
Gordon, aye.
Jim, I.
Luke, aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. A quick question for you. Do you notify the building inspector or do I?
We do.
Okay. Now, do I get documentation from you to indicate that you've approved this? Even an email or something?
Yeah, frankly, I'm a relatively new co-chair and this is new for me. I'm not sure. I know that we send that information to the building inspector and the building inspector sends something to you, but I'd be happy to send you something as well right now.
I would appreciate that very much.
Okay. Yeah. Not right now, but
No, of course not.
Okay. Thanks very much. And
Thank you very, very much.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
have a chance to speak, but thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
You bet.
Bye-bye. Okay, and Tish, you are on.
Okay.
Let me just pull up.
Gordon, did you want to do an introduction?
Well, I mean, this is a very charming house located on Holbrook Avenue that, although not a typical antique Cape Cod house, still has a great deal of merit. The proportions are lovely. I've always been very fond of it. And I know that Tish is working hard to bring it up a notch because it had been a rental house for many, many years and hadn't been well maintained. And I think part of what Tish is proposing to do, aside from the deck that we previously approved with its wire rail, is to add a porch here across the front, right now where there's none, to regularize the fenestration. And this application differs from the last one in that it's very clear that this window is being removed. And you'll have two pair of windows here, which is typical of architecture of this era. And also added a bunch of detail for the column capitals and the column bases. And also Tish has provided a picture of what the front door is going to look like, which is really helpful. So it's a big improvement over the previous application.
Mhm. Do we have the door information somewhere?
We do. I'm going to keep going through all of my things here.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. This is what it's going to look like if you're kind of standing down on Holbrook looking at the house. These are further details showing the column capital
Oh, that's such a big improvement.
and the column base. It really is. It really is. Here's a detail showing the dimensions of the base and a detail showing the dimensions of the capital, which is correct, where we have a 3-inch flat board in the capital at the top and a 6-inch one at the bottom, which makes sense to me. And this is about the windows, which we'll talk about more in a moment, but wait, I've obscured what I need to get to here, which is the door, which seems just perfectly appropriate to me for the house in terms of its style.
What is the door made out of?
It is a, I think it's a resin. It's, let me pull up the spec. Therma-Tru. So it isn't a wood door per se, but it's able to be painted to look like a wood door.
Uh-huh.
And Tish, the windows, they're Anderson clad wood windows.
Correct.
And from what series are they? I didn't look carefully.
It was the 400 series.
Right, okay.
And we matched the window style that was on the side porch that were installed before we bought the house. So we wanted to keep the aesthetic consistent.
Right.
And has the mullions on the top, the 6 light.
And are those mullions between the two pieces of glass, or are they applied grills?
I believe they're between the glass. I'd have to,
Yeah, it says that actually it says
on the
grills
spec.
glass division on the third line.
Yep, there it is.
Standard again. Grills between the glass division, 3 wide, 2 high. I'm going to go back to the, I'm an architect, so I always go back to this.
The pretty picture, yeah.
And there's not a plan for the windows on the right that don't match the ones on the left.
Not at this point. We're just trying to stay with the porch for now. And if we replace those, we'll probably do both at the same time, the kitchen and this window in the bedroom, because they're old jealousy windows that don't break a lot. But we didn't want to tackle that any further than the porch at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for coming in with more detail. That's very helpful.
No, I appreciate the request.
Yeah, I find it all to be a big improvement, and I wonder who else has comments about it.
I think it's a big improvement. I think it looks pretty well detailed. The drawing we're looking at here, it kind of looks like a full view door or a glass door, but
I asked the architect about that door, and he told me that it just hadn't been detailed on this drawing, and that's why they sent the catalog cut of the door that would be here.
yeah.
Correct. Yep.
And I don't have any objection to that door. I think it's a handsome door, but because it's a covered porch, you could entertain the idea of having a wood door. It's kind of nice that it's a covered porch. The warranties aren't offered on wood doors if they don't have a roof overhanging, but it would
Right.
be an option if you wanted to look into it. A lot of people just don't even have that as an option, really, or they avoid their warranty.
Right. I kind of wanted the painted door, and I figured if it was a paint versus a natural wood, it made sense to go with a more durable material.
Yeah.
Because the existing door was, it was warping. We couldn't even open it up, when hot weather. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The only other thought that I had, and it's not, it's just a thought, is that when you're working on the roof, if you're going to reweave into the existing roof, I think you're probably going to run into issues. There's only several different shingles available right now. So
Right. We actually have a few boxes of shingles in the basement. I don't know if it's enough, but we at least know what was put on the roof. So it's a very variegated, I don't know if there's an existing photo. It's sort of a brown, multicolored sort of warm tones.
Yeah.
Like a weathered wood blend, it might be called.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we're hoping we.
I don't think I
to-
have an existing photograph.
So it's just something that I thought I'd raise. I actually have a list of the shingles that are available right now.
Yeah, it's a
But-
short list, probably.
It's a short list, yeah. Charcoal black, Georgetown gray, moray black, pewter wood, weathered wood. That's it. That's in production.
And was weathered wood what you were assuming it was, Gordon?
It looks to me to be weathered wood blend from GAF Timberline you're talking about?
This is a landmark list, certainteed. I mean, there's other manufacturers, but I looked at it. I thought it was probably a landmark, but
Okay.
and
you-
I'm just raising the question because if it it could possibly lead to having to re-roof more than she anticipates, and it's just a point. I thought,
We'd rather not wind up with two different colored roofs in the house. If that's
Absolutely.
Tish.
I totally agree.
And yet technically, we're only supposed to consider what's on the application, right? Or is this part of the application?
Well, the
roof?
application says you're going to re-roof it using materials that match existing, right?
Correct.
But I suppose we could have a caveat, which is that if you can't find the material.
yeah, and I think what we really would be interested in is if it was going to go from asphalt to some other type of roof, but
That's not the intent at all. Yep.
no, I didn't think so.
Yeah, and you have a good point, Luke, about it being concerning if it's two different kinds of roofing material. So best wishes with that.
Right. I'm having a terrible time with all materials. I think everybody is.
I know.
And often much more expensive than they used to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any comments? Jim, do you have any comments?
Well, I think with the addition to them, I think the columns are harmonized very well with the style of the house without being overly ornate.
Mhm.
I agree. They look great. I guess I do have a question though. On the bottom part of the columns, it didn't look like there was actually. Could you just get closer to that, Gordon?
I think I need to get hold on.
Yeah. It looks like there's not a box that goes out from the trim, that it's just trim. Am I seeing that incorrectly? Because of the shadow that's there.
This is,
I think the base is wrapped also, so there is that thickness because the posts are gonna,
the base is wrapped.
Yep,
And
and
this is piece of
remind me
an inch and a half molding
Okay.
around the base. The column is back here and the base is out in this plane here.
correct.
So it's wrapped one by dimension
Okay.
or two by.
Okay.
And this lattice work is going to be put in place here?
That was from a photograph. I think the details of the porch, that was an inspiration photo from a porch near us here in New Hampshire. I'm trying to remember what the section drawing shows for the base.
Because
It's just one step up.
it's not clear here exactly what it is.
Yeah, I think we had a section drawing, Gordon, in the first submittal. I don't know if you have a copy of that.
No, I don't have a copy of it, Tish. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Trevor, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
So what is happening between
Yeah.
between the bottom of the band and grade?
Oh, in that little space?
Yeah.
That was not something I discussed with Tish. I'm not sure what she wants to do down there. There's not going to be very much space there to do much of anything, honestly.
Right.
I mean, you can't really put lattice in 8 inches of space. There's not enough space for the lattice to hold itself together.
Right.
I would recommend you just plant along that edge.
That's what I was planning on doing. Yeah, so low shrubs or,
Right.
Will there be steps going to the door?
Here's a step
I'm only
here.
showing one step in front of the door. Yeah.
And the steps are as wide as the first bay.
correct.
That's what we've shown. Yeah.
And are you less than 18 inches above grade here?
I don't know exactly. It's probably around there.
I'm asking only because I don't know what Massachusetts law
30.
is regarding having, I'm sorry, what?
30.
Oh, 30 in Massachusetts. You see, that's why I should do more work in Massachusetts. If you work at 18 inches or less
For a railing,
in 18 inches in New York.
30. Yeah.
Good.
All right, so any more discussion about this proposal? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that it be approved as submitted and that the roofing material will match that which exists. In the event that the owner is unable to obtain roofing material that matches the existing, they will extend the new material to all visible roof planes.
I'm not sure what that means.
Anywhere where you can see the roof, it has to look the same as the roof that they're putting on the front porch.
Okay,
Is the whole house, basically, right?
Basically the whole house, yeah.
Well, and I didn't bring that up necessarily to try to put an extra thorn into the mix.
It's a good
it just-
point.
It just, it's just a thought I had. If I was moving forward with it, I'd keep that in mind that it may, I mean, I would imagine that the homeowners would want to go the extra mile regardless to have their roofs look right. But
I mean, the other thing is that if the whole, I don't know what condition the roof is in now, if it doesn't need to be re-roofed. It's nice the idea of having the roof material on the porch match. The other kind of like standard for a porch like this would be to have some sort of a, standing seam turned metal roof in that one area.
Right, which would look more contemporary than I think we want.
Well, old barns had that standing seam metal roof, that when that's turned metal that ages out,
Mhm.
not the ones that are sort of powder coated.
Yep. I guess my only concern is the other hip of those juts that jut out.
Yeah, exactly. Because then
Yeah, would have to be included as well.
then you end up putting metal roof on the whole house, or at least on the whole
At least
lower
on-
part of the house.
Yeah, the lower part of the house. It's too
Yeah.
much. Yeah, no, I agree. I would just say, as I said in the motion, all visible roofs should match one another.
okay. I second the motion.
Gordon, yes.
Merrill, yes?
Jim, yes?
Luke, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming back, and
Thank you for making it happen this week. Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Thank you guys.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
guys.
Hey,
Be
Trev.
well.
Bye-bye, you too. Okay.
Had a little trouble with the sharing for this meeting. Sorry about that. I wasn't my usual smooth sharer this time.
You did a wonderful job introducing each project. So let's see. So our next item is member outreach and residency requirements. And I have some great news. Actually, two bits of great news around recruitment. Well, the major thing is that Eveline Lakis met with Select Board last night and they approved her application to join the Historical Commission. So we have one new member who Jim recruited, and we're very grateful to him. And I think she's going to be a terrific addition. And so that feels really good to have one new member. We have approached some other people. One person got very close and then decided she wasn't quite ready for the responsibility, but might be interested later. And Gordon has someone else in mind who lives part of the year in New York City. So we were trying to find out more about the residency requirements and also about the possibility of Zoom meetings over time. And Luke, you'll be unhappy to know that the governor has approved us for Zoom meetings through 2022.
Oh, boy.
However, working on a hybrid model where people who are at a distance could potentially be on Zoom, and people who are in town, once things are okay for opening, can meet in person. So that's what we're hoping for, is that we can have a hybrid model so it will be easier to recruit people who aren't here all year, because they aren't allowed to miss more than 4 meetings in a row. We're going to keep trying to recruit people and hopefully get 2 more members.
The person who I've approached is actually a resident of Wellfleet. That's his legal address. It's just that he was concerned about the winter months. But if he could,
that was the other piece that I was surprised to find out. I contacted both Ryan Curley and Helen Miranda Wilson, and they said, as the Independent also announced, that people are not required to live in Wellfleet. Ryan had recommended someone whose primary domicile is New York City, and she only comes to Wellfleet now for 2 or 3 weeks. And he recommended her for the Historical Commission because she does a blog on South Wellfleet and really is interested in the history. But she wasn't ready to make a commitment since she's here so little.
right.
I would welcome any thoughts anybody has about this, and feel free to let me know if you have ideas of other people that we might talk to.
I did send an email to Rebecca after she wrote to us just now, because if you look at the listing of vacancies on committees, it appears that we have 4 vacancies.
Oh, did you see the email that I sent? I thought
Yeah.
I see. I sent an email to her and asked her to update it, and told her who's still here and what my new term is. Everyone's doing. So yeah.
So we actually only have 2 positions, is the bottom line.
Yeah, which is
Now we have
great.
a 5th member.
Much better than
Yeah.
than 3. And then let's see, the follow-up about enforcement of our decisions was that Gordon and I had intended to meet with the new building inspector, but as you all know, the building inspector Paul Fowler has left, sadly. And so we are going to have temporary building inspectors for a while, is my understanding. So I'm assuming that we'll probably want to wait to talk about enforcement decisions until we have an ongoing person we can meet with, unless people have other thoughts about that.
I think there's nothing we can do if there's no building inspector.
Well, there is somebody, but it's just a temporary person. So yeah.
I've begun sort of as a corollary to this to take a look at the application. And I'm working on that in my office now to see if maybe we can make the application clearer, so that we wind up with applications that, designate all the materials, what the finishes are going to be, clearly talk about what the intent of the application is, just so it's clearer for us, so we can process these things in a more reasonable way without so much digging. It feels to me like we do an awful lot of digging to get information.
Yeah, it would be great. Yeah, more information about doors and windows at the outset.
Right, exactly. What door is it? What's the material? What,
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm working on that with actually my assistant, Katie, is doing it with me.
I was thinking actually about the enforcement decisions, that you had a few good ideas about this, that I was wondering if you might be willing to put into writing so that we have them when we do have somebody to meet with.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, if I could just repeat it, that when there is an application that is a good application. The right form is submitted to us with its backup drawings. In the end, what happens is that we basically stamp that application and those drawings approved, and then we send them to the Department of Buildings. So it goes into the file, and that when it comes time to issue a certificate of occupancy, the building inspector, refers back to those approved drawings. And if there's any deviation, then we have an opportunity to say, no C of O.
Mhm. I'm not sure how different that is from what has been done. But we definitely can confirm about how that works.
Yeah.
Is your understanding that it's different than that?
I don't know that it's necessarily different than that, or if it's just that we've had a series of building inspectors and a series of missteps and overworked people.
Yeah, okay.
I think overworked people is kind of the topic sentence.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that the consistency with what comes in front of us hasn't been very rigid.
Mhm.
There's been some buildings that, the new building that went in its place didn't have to come in front of us at all. For whatever reason, doesn't make sense to me. Other times, if somebody has to come in front of us to replace 2 windows, but somebody else can build a whole building without coming in front of us just because they had permission to take one building down, and then there was a lapse in time and didn't come back in front of us for the new building, or whatever the scenario is, it doesn't seem like it's been very consistent as far as what's come across, our in our meetings to be discussed. But
Yeah, and that's really the building inspector, right? To make sure to refer them to us.
yeah, and I think a lot of building inspectors like to play it extra safe and would put anything out to be reviewed by any of the boards. By better play it safe and kick it in front of conservation or zoning or historic, and just to make sure that they're covered, so to speak. But I think we've been kind of overlooked in some cases, possibly. And I'm not saying anybody did a horrible job, but I just don't think the consistency has been there.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. I mean, I can think of a couple of examples where windows have been replaced and crowns have been added to windows. And I know that those projects received building permits, but never came before this.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I remember talking about in the past was this whole issue of enforcement, and talking with the building inspector about types of enforcement that we might use in addition to a fine, since we so rarely use the fine. And Gordon, you had some creative ideas based on your experience in New York about other things we might do.
I mean, yeah, thinking about it in New York, what simply happens is if you're doing something that doesn't, the landmarks in New York is taken extremely seriously. And if in the course of a project, you do something that violates the approval that was issued by landmarks, there's a stop work order placed on the project.
Mhm.
And it has to be corrected. Or you have to go back before landmarks and ask for relief to have what you actually constructed approved. You're not really in the best position to do something like that when you've gotten yourself there.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Luke, you had concerns about enforcement. Did you have any other creative ideas about options?
No, I don't really. I'm the other half of me is pretty sympathetic for
Right.
somebody who has their back up against the wall and either has a homeowner who's demanding you deliver something. And I'm not talking about huge new sheets of glass facing into historic Wellfleet or something like that, but small details, and when your back's up against the wall because codes are conflicting. You're trying to meet an energy code and keep the historic aspect of things as it always has been. And, there's certain situations where I think there needs to be leeway, and getting fined every step of the way is kind of scary. But, it seems to me like the biggest issue is just having the discussion. If somebody's in the historic district and all of a sudden there's a deck being built with cable railings, and then the next person ends up in front of us and we kind of go back and forth on the cable railing, well, why was the person who we never saw issued a permit, including cable railings and, that type of thing. So,
Yeah.
I'm more interested in focusing on the consistency rather than finding a way, but
I don't think, yeah, no, the fines don't strike me as being, I mean, I feel like if you're in the course of a project, if you're unable to accomplish what you presented and you have to file an amendment to your application, then you just come back and explain why and amend the application. I mean, I think that's what makes most sense, as
Mhm.
opposed to just doing it. It's the just doing it thing. And it's the not getting referrals. And it's the people just doing things that they want to do. And it's not having sort of certain consistent guidelines, which Marilyn and Jim and I worked on these, Luke. I have them here.
Yeah, I reviewed them, and I think they look pretty good, and they all pretty much make sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some of the key features or aspects of the historic buildings that I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim did a wonderful job of reviewing the standards for 3 different Cape towns that were online at the Mass Historical Commission from their historic district guidelines. And then we went through them and basically decided that we wanted to be more concise, I guess. Provincetown ended up being a primary model because they weren't getting into a lot of very strict guidelines, but more general sense of what they wanted. And so we were kind of using that as a model.
Yeah.
Anything you would add to that, Gordon?
No, I think that's right. We tried to give people leeway to still be kind of creative and let Wellfleet be a little funky, while at the same time kind of establishing standards. I don't know, Meryl, were we going to talk about the dormers where?
Oh, you had a typo at least in dormers, and I wasn't sure where it was.
Yeah, actually, my I guess one question was kind of in regards to the dormers.
Okay.
I mean,
So what was your question, Luke?
Well, I'm looking over it again now. I believe it said the dormer shouldn't be wider than the windows on the building below.
yeah, that's what I'm having a hard time with too, and should be symmetrically distributed across the roof slope.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was supposed to leave that part out. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, because I mean, even if you look at
Right.
my house, which is
Yeah.
certainly historic, it's not, the dormers are not symmetrical.
Well,
Yeah.
and the width of them, I mean, I think most buildings, and at least most capes historically had real narrow dormers, basically only accommodating the window, but the width of the window, it has to be wider than the width of a window to incorporate a wall on either side of it and have a little bit of room for trim and siding and that type of thing.
So how would you
Right,
guys put it?
it's
'Cause
not-
I'm sorry.
No, what Luke just said is correct. Absolutely. It's not achievable, because by the time you put the window in and you put the walls, it's going to be wider than the windows below.
I hear that.
And walls have to be wider than ever, really, because you really have your back up against the wall to do a 2x6 wall now. I mean, that's where, some of the other codes kind of competing under the same grounds. You can do a 2x4 wall still, but then you're twisting someone's arm into having a very expensive insulation contract. They have to do all closed cell foam. You won't get the R value. So 2x6 walls, one on either side of a window, makes it a little bulkier in nature. Whereas who knows if they even had a couple studs in some of those old dormers, they might just be a couple, boards for the cheek walls. And, but in any case, that was the only thing that I thought wasn't really doable, was the width of the window line there.
That makes sense to me. I guess, so this was copied from one of the other towns. I forget which, but I think what I was thinking about is that sometimes when people do gable dormers, they are much larger than the windows below and they feel top heavy. So I was just wondering if there was some way we could do some guideline about that. It doesn't have to be this compulsive as this sentence, but is there anything that you guys would say about gable dormers, or would you just want to have a sentence about shed dormers on that paragraph?
You know what bugs me about gable dormers actually is not what this is addressing so much, but it's like when you have a window and then you have all this siding beside it and then the edge of the dormer, as
Mhm.
opposed to having the sidewalls tight to the window.
Right.
Yeah, Luke, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it looks chunky and it looks weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you're saying that can be problematic not to do that. Did I hear you right?
Well, no, because there could be a corner board that's the width that you need it to be. You can have the window, and then you can have the casing around the window, and then you can have a wide corner board. And that corner board can, it could be a 9-inch wide board on either side, a flush board,
Mhm.
as opposed to having the window, the trim, a sliver of siding, and then a corner board.
Mhm.
It's that sliver of siding thing that bugs me. What do you think, Luke? Am I being too compulsive?
Well, you mean you prefer not to see the sliver of siding just trim from the corner into
Yeah,
the window?
yeah.
I don't have a real strong dislike to seeing that little bit of siding. I mean, I think it kind of breaks it up a little bit, but everybody's got their personal preference. What I personally don't like to see in a gable dormer, or we usually call them doghouse dormers, it's probably kind of slang, but is when they go straight up the wall and it doesn't look like they're stepped back on the roof. There's no roof trim. It's just like an extension of the lower wall. That's what I don't like to see, but that's kind of my personal opinion. And I think, if we really start tying people's hands too much with the gable dormers or doghouse dormers and the do's and don'ts, maybe they'll say, well, forget it. I'll get much more usable space if I just go with a shed dormer, and then we get a whole bunch of shed dormers facing the street, and I'm not trying to bash it, but the Newcomb Hollow shop has one big shed dormer facing the street. And, if that was all over, and I'm not trying to criticize anyone's building, but if that was all over town, a repeating theme because we were denying doghouse dormers, then that would be kind of odd, I think.
Okay.
Most shed dormers are facing into the back of a property, and so.
Right.
Can I make a proposal?
Yeah.
Just for that sentence. So I'm thinking we could just say gable dormers and then skip the rest of the sentence. And shed dormers should be set back appropriately from the roof eave and roof ridge. How's that?
That's roof eave and fascia. And
Oh, not roof eave. Yeah, it's the roof. Oh, yeah, that's not appropriate, is it?
well, no, setback from the eave is right. That brings it inward from the outside of the roof.
All right.
Bring it upward, I think it has to be set back from the fascia, and then it has to be set down from the ridge.
All right, that's what I was referring to, is not having the wall of the house just continue right up through the dormer. So
like 99 Holbrook has. I mean, basically there's a porch now, going to be a porch concealing it, but that was that kind of 1935 vocabulary.
So can one of you provide the wording for me for that sentence about gable dormers? I'll get rid of what's there, but if I start with gable dormers, what should I say?
Gable dormers should be set back appropriately from the roof eave, comma, fascia, and ridge, period.
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't get that.
that
From
makes
the,
sense to me.
okay, from the roof.
Eave, comma,
Yep,
fascia,
okay,
and edge.
okay. And that's good with you, Luke?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Sorry, I forgot to get rid of that part.
No, it's okay.
But I'm glad we had this discussion because it'll improve it. Did
Yeah.
you have more you wanted to say, Gordon? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just,
No, Meryl, I'm sorry. I'm the interrupter usually anyway, but I was just thinking that it's really important that we allow people space to kind of do their thing while
Yeah.
at the same time having some broad parameters.
yes, I agree. I guess, and we also tried to get rid of a lot of shoulds, but I'm realizing this paragraph has a lot of them.
The
So
dormers.
that's the other thing. Is there any other way to say it without using shoulds? There's shoulds on porches and decks down below I'm seeing too. It's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it's recommended, but then a recommendation is just a recommendation. I mean, I guess this is really a list of recommendations at, steering people towards something that would be approved easier.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Yeah.
Historic porches and decks, including their decorative features, should be retained and repaired. I think it's all right.
Okay. Yeah, the next sentence has a must in it instead of a should. Still a little bossy, but what do you do?
Right. We are going to be bossy and unpopular.
Yep. This, on the windows, I decided to include more of this educational stuff just because I thought if we get to the point where we're publishing this stuff, that it just would be useful for homeowners to know more of these options and all of that. You might put this information in the application too, though, Gordon, I
Yeah.
get about like the window options.
Do we say anywhere that it can't be like a solid vinyl window?
We didn't say that explicitly, although when we talked about alternate materials, we didn't include vinyl. Let's see. Oh, you know where it was? Up above, when it talks about the different kinds of windows. Let's see. Yeah. No. It's a little farther down, I think. When applicant requests replacements. Yeah. So wood.
Single pane, true divided light, insulated, energy efficient, true divided light, double pane.
And then there's another one down below, another two, I think, three. Okay. So, oh, no, that doesn't say.
This talks about the glazing, but doesn't talk about the
Maybe I
frame.
left out the materials. Huh.
I mean, windows should be wood, comma, and may be clad, period.
Right. Okay. Should I say wood interior or just wood? Comma,
Wood.
may be clad. Okay.
Clad.
Maybe clad on the, well, they aren't clad on the inside, right? Or they are sometimes like the,
People can do, I mean, it's the inside.
yeah. All
What
right.
do you think, Luke? That's right. Windows should be wood and may be clad.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So I'll figure out where to fit that in best. All right. Any other changes that anybody wants to mention?
I just wanted to comment on the siding. This is inspired, I guess, by the instant case that we just reviewed. When the original siding has not been retained and has been replaced with artificial siding, what is our role in reviewing an application to to replace artificial siding with artificial siding. I mean, isn't that a sort of an in-kind replacement?
Yeah.
Hmm. It's an
I
excellent,
don't know that that instance needs to be described in these criteria, but maybe it does, because they're, you know, post the homes that had artificial siding installed post 1986 are falling under review.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the slang for that is it's grandfathered in.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt uncomfortable about our role, I guess.
Mhm. Well, I would have felt, yeah, I guess I felt less uncomfortable in that there was no wood underneath, you know, there was no viable wood underneath the aluminum siding. I think what would have been difficult was if the original clapboards were there and they were really deteriorated. Um, in some ways that seems like a, you know, because then it could be asking them to spend a great deal of money. But I hear you, because we don't actually have anything about that in here. I guess the only thing we have that's close to it is new materials that duplicate the original as closely as possible. I think that's implying the original of what was on the house,
Right.
you know, in the very beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of hard when somebody's interested in a product that's going to guarantee extending the longevity of it. You know, lots of the old growth lumber that's not savable and has to come off a house. Now it just can't be replaced with wood that you can buy off the shelf and expect it to last as long. So,
And
I
that's
mean,
clapboards too.
yeah, it really is. The real old stuff was you know, really dense and hard as a rock, and it's a lot of it, like he pointed out, was in the maintenance, the paint, how well you take care of it,
Mhm.
you know, and then the house, the exposure to what sunlight, what wind, what salt spray, you know. I built a house 7 years ago. And the homeowner just had me back to try to get some sort of warranty. They wanted Maybach, that manufactures a lot of these siding materials, to at least cover the house to be painted, because the stain was peeling on only the side that's facing the ocean. So it's, you know, there's a whole bunch of variables, but you know, I just think it's hard to tell somebody, you know. And then there's a lot of the places in town are in such close proximity that at least on the side elevation, they're going to require something with a fire rating that's not cedar, like a cement board or something is going to be required. So that's another thing where codes kind of start interfering with the historic aspect of things. But so, and how that all relates to what we're talking about, it's almost back to like a case by case review.
Yeah, it's hard to always be consistent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the problem is that, and you know, we encounter this all the time, as Luke is saying, is that sort of historic standards and what we'd like to do is thwarted by new building code requirements.
Yeah. I mean, personally, you know, my personal opinion is I'm okay when it's done well and somebody's doing good carpentry. I'm okay with the I don't use AZAC, but similar products for trim.
Mhm.
You know, or if somebody wants to use AZAC, fine. That's not what I work with, but that's because you can have it be pretty convincing in the trim details, and it gets painted out, and then the homeowner has a peace of mind that it's not going to rot in 10 years. But I always go over to cedar for siding, and it's got like a 20-year lifespan, and that's just kind of, it is what it is. I don't really want to get into, you know, like vinyl or something. I just looked at a house yesterday in Truro. The homeowner wanted cement board, and he came by, and I gave him samples today of clapboard, and his daughter actually overheard us talking, and she wanted clapboard, cedar clapboard. So, you know, I think there's a place for everything, but I don't know. So, and the, you know, some of the cedar clapboard is definitely going to last. I have stuff that I've installed 20 years ago, and it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You
Cedar
know?
clapboard last.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I also think about, you know, the fact that the Cape is going to be underwater at some point, and what are we going to leave behind? But at the same, we're in an 1850s house that people before us had done a wonderful job of taking care of, and they wanted everything to be authentic. So they insisted that the porch be built with ash wood, and it rotted out within, a very short period of time. I think maybe 6 years.
Yeah.
So we put in an AZAC porch. It just seemed like there was no point. I felt terrible doing it because I don't like the idea of adding more plastics in the environment, but it seemed the only practical way to have a porch since we're near the ocean.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
I think
windows.
there's got to be some leeway, but I think we should recommend that, at least with siding, you know, that it be real wood anyway. But, and I've used cement board. I've been, you know, it's, and like I said, in the downtown area with buildings right on top of each other, you may not be able to use clapboard if that's what the building inspector asks for, you know. But,
Yeah. So we'll need to be flexible and take things case by case. And this is really just meant to be guidelines. So I guess, I don't know, should we change the wording in any way with this to make that clear that it's guidelines?
Well, wait. Guidelines.
well,
Guidelines.
you could say something something along the lines of this. This is you know, points to consider prior to submitting an application to ensure, you know, approval, or not to ensure approval, but
I think you could just call it design guidelines for historic buildings, and
there you go.
send it out with the application.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so that's the next part that we should talk about, because these design guidelines were based on design guidelines that were posted on the Mass Historic Commission website because they're part of local historic districts, which is what Provincetown has and Wellfleet doesn't. And the town, we would have to, if we were to develop a local historic district, we could actually have that be a district, you know, like the center of town, and you can even have individual houses be local historic districts. So for example, that the Mayo house that we were talking about, Gordon, could be a local historic district all by itself.
Fast.
Yeah. So, so there are real advantages to it, but Jim and I both attended a workshop about this with the Mass Historic Commission, and it was really clear from that, and from talking, I talked to Maria Burks about it, and to Lydia. Everybody feels like we need to do a lot more work on building community support before we propose anything like that.
Don't like us.
And I talked to Sarah Korcheff about it as well, and she said that the way P-Town did it was that they drew up guidelines and made them public and made it very clear that if, you know, with the way it is now with the National Register Historic District, the Cape Cod Commission makes the final decision about the National Register houses. And with the local historic district, we would have a local historic district commission that would make the final decision. And of course, there are pluses and minuses to that because they have professionals at the Cape Cod Commission, and, you know, it's how informed people are on the historical commission. And it probably would be the same group of people because I don't think we have enough people to have a separate historic commission and a separate historic district commission.
Let me-
So I'm not sure. What we were thinking is it might make sense just for us to use these for training purposes as new people come on so they have a sense of our standards. And if we use them internally and try them out for a while, and then at some point when we feel ready to talk about a local historic district publicly, then maybe use this as a first draft that we might want to expand on of what the standards could be, because we have to have design guidelines for that purpose. But they have to be voted on by the town.
Do we think that because it's not a historic district that we cannot share these publicly or include them with applications?
That's what I'm not sure about. And I will ask Sarah Korcheff about that because I think she's the best person to check in. I think I even sent her an email to that effect. But in any case, I'll ask her if I haven't done that.
If you were to have Wellfleet historic design guidelines
Mhm.
and then say that something to the effect of, and I'm not being very articulate, I'm sorry, I've just had a long day, but something to the effect that every project is individual and that, things are considered on a case-by-case basis.
Mhm.
That said, in general, we as a committee strive to stick to these guidelines.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
So that we're not saying it's mandatory, but these are the kinds of things we're going to be looking at. So applicants take a look at this and see if you can kind of stick with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at least somebody who didn't know what we were looking for, maybe it would influence some of their choices, prior to submitting something that's going to just bog down our decision making, bog down their executing their project. And maybe somebody doesn't really strongly feel they need, vinyl siding. It was just recommended by a friend, and they'll decide against it prior to going into the meeting.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
That's-
I like that idea. And it'd be nice to just be out there about it. And I think it could help people as they come into the process, like you're saying, Luke, and it could also make our meetings more efficient to have people know ahead of time what the expectations are.
Yeah, and I think that what we're doing is we're asking people to consider these. We're not saying that everything has to be exactly like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think the goal would be transparency and consistency. And
Yes, I agree.
And we could say that in an effort to be clear and consistent in
Mhm.
general.
not only clear, but open.
Yeah.
That it's people publicly know.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It isn't some sort of esoterica. People don't understand what's at stake or what's being applied, or they think it's different things are applied in different cases and it's not fair.
Yeah, I've heard they never accept synthetic materials for doors. I hear they never, it's kind of
Yeah, it's
battle
got,
up.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it would really help with that too. Okay. Well, I must say, this feels so good to be able to talk about this and get clear about this as a group. And I think it's going to be very helpful for new people coming in to have more information because it's hard to come onto the Historical Commission and not really have a sense of what we're supposed to be doing. So, I do think the Department of the Interior guidelines are very helpful, but that in addition to this will be great, I think.
Yeah, just we'll have a place where they can find those guidelines. But then
Yeah.
I think including this with applications, I think would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So I will do a little more investigating about how we can do that part. And let's see. So the next part is about community preservation, and Jim has been doing a lot of work about this. He's our new CPC representative. And Jim, do you want to talk about this? Do you want me to talk about it?
Well, I think the most pressing concern is that we have a, excuse me, a 2018 grant that will be expiring soon. And some would say has already expired in May, in which there are remaining funds, about $3,800 in remaining funds that really can't be expended in the way they were originally dedicated. And we can explain why, but at any rate, they can't. So in discussing this with Mary Rogers, the secretary for the CPC, she advised that we seek an extension till the end of the calendar year to encumber these funds, and that we repurpose the funds in a way that's consistent with the original intent of the grant. And that we, to expedite this, it could be considered apparently at the August 3rd meeting of the CPC. So we'd have to decide if that's what we want to do. I think, frankly, I think we should endeavor to expend all of the funds we were given, even if they can't be expended quite in the way that was originally intended, because otherwise it will be returned to the CPC to dispense. And it may give the appearance that we don't need these funds or don't care about them, which is not true.
Mm-hmm. So I can be more specific based on Jim's letter about this, which is there's $401 remaining on that grant to supply binders for the library for the Form Bs. And apparently, according to Tom, we don't need any more of those. He had been in Jim's role before with the CPC and dealing with the historic plan. And then there's about 3,000 that are for the Form Bs. And then there are some unexpended funds for a workshop, about 478. So Mary was recommending that we just put all of those funds together and make a request that we have more money for the historic plan, which is the Form Bs. And so I was saying to Jim that I thought we should just make sure about what Lynn Smilage's contract is and where we are in the process of that contract, and whether I don't know whether there's a time limit to it and whether we have her unendingly, because it might be tricky to hire somebody else in time, but I guess it still could get done. He was saying it would cover about 17 more new Form Bs. And somebody should be able to do that before the end of the year, I would think.
Mhm.
So I guess the idea was to maybe vote on, Jim, are you okay with writing this grant if we do that, or would Mary write it? How does that work?
I think we would have to write it. I would write it. I'm not sure whether it's an amendment or a new proposal. I would just say the historic plan is not the same as the Form Bs. The historic plan was something else that was planned to do, but was not carried out.
Well,
Not carried out as conceived.
Yeah, Lydia
So
told me.
that's $3,000 that remains that could be reapplied to the building inventory forms.
Okay.
But it's not the same thing.
Well, I know. I know that that's what Tom said, and then when I asked Lydia about it, she said it was the same thing. So who knows?
Well,
We can make it the same thing in our request.
right. Well, I don't think it'll be considered to be the same thing because we have a plan for the plan that was in the application.
Oh.
Well, it's fine with me to just say we want the money for the Form Bs and just.
Yeah. Well, right.
Good. We'll keep documenting.
Yeah. So any questions about this, or should we just have a motion and a vote?
I think a motion and a vote.
All right. Would you like to make the motion, Jim? Or do you want me
Yes,
to?
well, yes, I would move that we petition the CPC to extend the term of the 2018 grant that we were awarded until the end of the year and allow us to propose some alternative purposes for the remaining funds that are consistent with the original intent.
I second it.
So I wonder about the original intent. I guess I would think we would want the motion to be to extend it in order to in order to how would we say it? Because really we want to put all of that money into one purpose, right? We don't want to do it for the same intent.
Well, the certainly part of that grant was producing more of the building inventory forms.
Right.
That was part of the grant. So if we say that's what we want to do, we want to take the remaining money and further that work, I think that's consistent with the original intent. Because
Okay.
that work was subsidized by that grant.
Right. I guess just because the grant money was divided into 4 different buckets, I was thinking maybe we could just be really transparent and move that we petition the CPC to extend the grant to produce more historic building inventory forms. Is that all right?
That would be fine with me.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I wrote it down because I was realizing you're the secretary, and of course you wouldn't be able to write down your motion anyway. It's does anybody want to second that motion?
I second it.
Merrill votes aye.
Jim, I.
Luke, aye.
Gordon, aye.
Okay. And I think that's it for now. Oh, minutes. We have to approve the minutes that Carol wrote. Do you have those, Gordon?
I don't. Do we need to have them on the screen or can we just?
Has anybody read them?
I know, look, Luke and Gordon have this very uncomfortable expression on each of their faces when you ask.
If I got the minutes emailed to me, it slipped back right by.
Yeah. I know how busy you are.
Did she
Well-
email? Are they emailed to us, Meryl? Do you have them handy? Do you want to email them to me and I'll share them if you want me to?
Okay, hold on one second. I think I have to go out of this temporarily. I'm just going to minimize you.
Wait, did Carol send them? Who sent them originally?
I just have it printed out from the email, but yes, it would have been Carol and it would be on the Historic Commission email.
Oh, forget that. Yeah, I can't get into that when I'm on the Zoom.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to try. I have it up, but oh, here it is. Okay.
We need young people who know how to do these things.
All right, so they're attached.
Are you going to send it to my GJK@GK Associates email? That would be great.
Okay. I'm just sending you the email with the attachment. Is that all right?
That's perfect.
Okay. Oops, that didn't work. Sorry. Forward. GJK. Okay.
Oh, I just found it in my phone. I just didn't see it,
That's okay.
but I do now.
Can you look at it quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Are you still
Sent
sending
it
them?
to you. Did you get it? Do you want me to send it to you too, Jim?
No, I've read them and they're fine.
Oh, good.
That's really good. I didn't get it, Meryl.
Oh, bummer. All right.
It could be coming.
Forward. GJ. Yeah, there it is. And then Send.
May just be taking a while to get to New York.
It is a ways.
Oh, here they are.
For June 2nd.
Yes, exactly. The first one on it is 15 Bank Street and then 99 Holbrook and then 15 Squires Pond Lane.
Oh, I do remember seeing this actually. Hang on, it's just opening up. Do you all see this thing bouncing?
See what bouncing?
There it is. Can
Let's-
everybody, can you guys see that? Am I still sharing or no?
No, let's see. I need to make you bigger. No, I can't see anything. Oh, there it is. Yes, you got it.
Okay. So it says Richard presented a proposal to replace the window with a door, which looks great, by the way. I went by and I met with him and looked at it.
Oh, while we're looking at this, can I say something? I
Mhm.
feel a little silly about this. Originally I was referred to as Ms. Mead Fox, which was actually okay with me. But then when I realized that Jim was coming on and Jim and I both have PhDs, I thought, well, if Jim's going to be a doctor, then I'm going to be a doctor. And now
Be a
he's a
doctor.
minister and I'm a doctor. So I'm okay with going back to Ms.
Oh, no. Well, I don't have a Mr. Khan, comma, AIA, which is okay. Or Luke Manning, comma, GC.
About your title.
Mm. Okay, that's good. 99 Holbrook. Well, we already went through this and we got it approved.
Yeah.
So that was fine. You know where we're going to have an enforcement issue is at 15 Squires Pond Lane.
Yeah, because we probably won't have a consistent building inspector during that whole time.
And he's a freewheeling kind of guy.
Careful, we're being taped. Yeah.
We should watch it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I like your way of just going by and checking in on what people are doing. I think that's
Yeah.
smart. I will try to join you on that.
Okay. This all is fine.
Great. Yeah, it's fine with me too.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so I move to accept the minutes of June 2nd.
I'll second. Okay.
Merrill, I.
Gordon, I.
Jim, aye.
Luke, aye.
All right, now we're done. I think. Anything else on the agenda we have to cover?
I think that was it. Let me just look. Minutes. Oh, accounting. Correspondence, social media.
Yeah, we kind of covered accounting. Is there anything else you want to say about that, Jim?
No, that's
Oh,
fine.
you're the accounting, Gordon. I'm sorry.
I don't know anything about it. I have to find out for the next meeting.
It's primarily what Jim's doing with the CPC. So we should let you know, actually, that Jim and I talked about the fact that he now has many roles. He is very generously being our treasurer, our secretary, and our CPC rep. So one of our goals is to have one of our new people become the secretary.
Mhm.
We had hoped to hire a secretary, but unfortunately, we won't be able to do that because we were hoping to use CPC funds to hire secretary. Apparently, that's not allowed. And
A
so,
resounding no, I might add.
Right.
so in order to get a secretary who's a professional secretary, we would have to apply for town meeting. And I was told by two people that they thought it was very unrealistic to think we could get it at this next town meeting that's happening because of all the money expenditures, which makes sense to me. So we're going to have to do what we've been doing. And we're hoping to get one of the new members. I'm thinking maybe we'll ask Eveline since she's the first on, and I know she's very competent, if she might be willing to do that. And then
I don't want to come across as not wanting to take on another obligation, but I just don't want to take on an obligation and then mess it up. That's my biggest fear is to,
Right.
especially with, the treasurer. I didn't even know what would go into that really. So, and I don't know if Tom wants to tutor me necessarily and bring me along or whatever. But I, you know, so if there's a way I can help out more, it's not that I object to that. I just don't want to put us all in a position where I'm not delivering what I say I will.
Yeah. I really appreciate your clarity about what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. And you're very valuable to us with your skill set for the commission and for our meetings. And, you know, I think people can do what they're able to do, and we all have to figure out what our limits are.
Mhm.
So I don't think it makes sense for you to do things that you don't have time or energy for.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, feel free to run something by me if Jim's all jammed up and there's just nowhere to turn. I mean, I'm here, but I don't want to not deliver is my biggest fear, you know, so.
We're hoping Eveline is going to come to the rescue and some other people too soon. So.
Okay.
But I want to thank all of you for your input. Thanks so much, Luke, for reading those guidelines, and to both of you for your expertise about the guidelines. It feels like a real relief to have that as an option for us.
Yeah, I think that was some good work done. And
Really good work, you guys.
Yeah. And
yeah,
Jim,
sorry to everybody that I kind of wasted everybody's hour or whatever last week. I apologize.
It was
Wasn't
like
my
10
intention.
minutes. No apology necessary. It was like 10 minutes. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right.
yeah, it's all right. But thanks so much for being here this time. And I hope we'll be able to work out a hybrid model so that you don't have to be on Zoom forever after.
And
Hey, it is what it is, you know, that I was kind of, I like the face-to-face meetings that we had, and I was looking forward to getting back to that. So now that we can go to Fenway Park, it seems like, what the heck, you know, but.
You got a point there. Yeah.
Anyway,
maybe some people would be more comfortable on Zoom and some people would be more comfortable in person, and maybe the town can develop the possibility of a hybrid.
Yeah, I feel hopeful about that. Yeah, and it would certainly help all the committees get more members, I think.
Yeah.
So,
whatever works.
Yes.
yeah,
Thank you,
all right,
everyone.
great to be with you all. Thank you all for all that you're doing, and we'll see you in a month.
And wait, Meryl,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you, because you're doing really Herculean efforts, Meryl. You are constantly writing and following up and keeping track of what everybody else is doing. And I feel guilty as a co-chair that I'm not really doing that. And I really appreciate that you are doing that.
Well,
And
thank
again, I will help in whatever way I can. But as you know, I am also spread a little thin.
Yes, and I think we need to sort of put guilt out the window here, because you also are contributing an enormous amount with all of your expertise and your ability to negotiate with people about compromise. So no need for guilt. Just throw it out the window every time it comes.
By guilt, I'm a good noodler. Okay. Bye,
right.
everybody.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night. Good night.